Alright, let's get this over with. Doing another one of these stupid reviews. Yeah, I know I seem a little annoyed today, but it's whatever, okay? What? This? It's just a locket. Why? Welcome back to the Harry Potter reviews, guys. We're coming into the home stretch. We are into the last one, sort of. The last two movies, but the last book. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 is yet again directed by David Yates. He finishes out the series and beyond. And we have one other crew change, and that is that Nicholas Hooper is no longer the composer. Now it's Alexandre Desplat. And I really like Alexandre Desplat. He's done The Shape of Water and Little Women, as well as these last two. And he's really good at creating really intense themes that are also really haunting, especially if you've heard the Shape of Water theme, which is one of my favorites. And so that's really relevant for this movie, which is coming up towards the end, and it's very scary stuff. So in this one, the trio has to go on their mission for the Horcruxes to try to defeat Voldemort as the war really starts. It comes to a head. Voldemort takes over the Ministry. He's starting to really get into the Muggle world, and people are just dying, like, everywhere, all the time. They have to try to defeat him and destroy all the Horcruxes before he realizes it, but they have to find them first, which is the hardest part. And obviously, as the name implies, we also get introduced to something called the Deathly Hallows, which are 3 things made by Death himself, supposedly, that if you possess all of them, you become Master of Death. So the biggest thing I always talk about with these movies is the adaptation from the book, and I'll be honest, I'm not really going to spend a whole lot of time on that because they did a really, really good job. It helps that this one is obviously split into 2 movies, which I thought was a very good choice. They had started doing that with Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, but this one I think was definitely necessary if they weren't going to do any of the others, just to get all those end character moments in and all the plot. And like, obviously they're still not going to be able to put every single thing in, but they put the vast majority, like almost every single chapter is in this movie of like the first 24 chapters, which is where I think it stops. They were able to put all of it in and more in terms of we finally get some other character moments. We get to just spend some time with them. We don't have to rush every scene or kind of combine scenes. It was very nostalgic. They had, like, in the beginning, they have Hagrid talking to Harry about how he brought him here 16 years ago. And, you know, you see Harry playing with the chess pieces that he was playing with in the Sorcerer's Stone. So they were very, very good about letting you feel the movie while also putting in all of the plot that's in the book. And that's also good, too, because then they were able to put in not only literally what happens, but also all these other little subplots and themes that come up, like talking about Dumbledore, and did he really have that, you know, innocent of a past, and kind of bringing up questions about what he did as a child, things about wands, and how we don't exactly, up to this point, have knowledge of exactly what they do. I mean, there's a lot more things that we learn about them, about their ownership, and why they choose who they choose, and how they work against each other. As always, there are 1 or 2 things that I feel like they could have put in, and the only reason I bring them up is because they are things that would not have taken a very long time, if at all, to add in there. Like, there are some things that would have taken a few minutes. There are some things that you didn't even have to change the shot, just change a detail of the shot. The biggest thing for me is, and spoilers obviously, Peter Pettigrew's death did not happen. And I thought that was a very, very big shock. He was such a big character in Prisoner of Azkaban, and then he kind of like fell to the wayside for the next couple of movies. But he's still a big character. He's one of the reasons Voldemort returned. You didn't have to do much with him in the last couple, but like he died. He's one of the main villains. We need to see that, and all they had to do was give a couple minutes of showing, you know, that scene where his hand kind of starts to strangle himself, and so it was kind of annoying, and especially the way that they did sort of end his character was he gets stunned and falls down and goes, ow. Like, come on. In the book, when Harry goes in disguised as Runcorn into Umbridge's office, he takes Moody's eye out of the holder and takes it with him because, you know, he's like, it should be buried properly because it's a symbol of Mad-Eye Moody. And in the movie, they literally have a shot where he leaves and you still see the eye in the door hole. And I'm like, you didn't even have to change the shot. You could have just taken it out and it would have been that detail that, like, if you notice it, great. If you don't notice it, you know, it doesn't change anything, but if you do notice it, it's like, wow, you were really faithful to that. But yes, what they did put in was phenomenal, especially the Seven Potter scene. That is probably one of the best scenes of the series. It was so well done, and it's great that they didn't have to use any CGI or anything. It's all practical effects and how the camera works and where Daniel Radcliffe was standing, and it's extremely funny. It is one of the most entertaining ones, and you get to see all these characters coming together, which is really cool. I mean, just in terms of the series as a whole, but that scene specifically, you see all these characters in one room, which is awesome. And the Weasley twins are great, obviously, in that scene. And they do a really good job of introducing characters in this movie that we didn't see previously. But it's not like we're just introducing them now because we didn't get to before. It feels like it's still natural. Like when Bill Weasley comes in and Mundungus Fletcher and Rufus Scrimgeour, it's characters that were in the previous books. We didn't get to see them in the movie, but they just, they're able to just bring them in without seeming like it was missing something from before. Lastly, in terms of scenes, I promised I wouldn't talk about the adaptation, but there's just so many good parts to this movie. Harry and Hermione dancing. Like a lot of people, when I was younger and I first saw it, I was like, this seems a little out of place, but it's such a good scene, and that is a holy character moment that is not in the books, and was such a good addition. And everybody and their mother is like, oh, it's Hermione, they're starting to ship. But shut up. He sees his friend in pain and sad and just without any hope. And he's just like, for just a second, let's just take that all away and just be in this moment and just try to have some fun. And I thought that was a very, very good tension breaker. And just a very good character scene overall. It just made me feel happy. Another really great thing about this movie is something I actually don't bring up a whole lot. I don't think I've ever actually brought it up, but it's very important, is location. And that's because, in a lot of the other movies, they use generally the same locations. But for this one, they had to do a lot of serious location scouting. And they picked some really gorgeous, cinematic, awesome-looking outside venues. All of the locations that they picked were great because not only were they very cinematic and made them look very small in this huge world, but it very much added to the tone of the movie, which is the next thing I want to talk about, because these locations were very solemn. They were very gray or quiet or lonely or empty. And that was like during the camping parts at least. And that was very, very good in terms of addressing the tone, which is quiet, which is intense and very claustrophobic. For not the whole thing, but for most of the middle and the end, it is very eerie, and that is because we're out here roughing it, trying to just find these Horcruxes, and everybody's getting mad at each other, they're starting to say things they don't mean, and it's just getting very intense and very, like, you don't know when this act is going to end, because it just feels like they're camping forever, and it feels like they're just going from location to location, and it really makes you feel what those characters are going through, which was great. There's actually even a deleted scene that really hypes that up that I think is one of the weirdest deleted scenes I've ever seen, especially for a Harry Potter movie. But if you've never seen it, there is a deleted scene where Harry and Ron are chasing a rabbit and like shooting spells at it. Now, it's deleted, so I don't think it was finished. You don't see the actual spells. And they're like literally trying to like kill this rabbit, I guess, for food. But they start to kind of like go a little nuts, and they like start, I don't know, like playing hide and seek with each other. And they're like there's a tree, and like Ron's on one side of it and Harry's on the other side, and it's like, where are you going? And they start shooting spells at each other, and then the annoyance that's starting to bubble underneath Ron comes out, and he shoots a spell that's a little too close to Harry. It's just creepy. I don't know. The first time I saw it, I was like, this is like weird for a Harry Potter movie. So if you get a chance, check that scene out. It's interesting. So in terms of characters, there's not a whole lot of new characters. I mean, there's a couple smaller new characters, like I said, Bill and Mundungus Fletcher. But a lot of the characters I want to talk about, only a few of them are they're very, very crucial to this movie. One of them I actually do want to talk about. He's not in it a whole lot, but I haven't gotten to talk about him before, and I want to address him a little bit more, is Lupin. He's had a big role throughout the entire series in the books, and it felt like he kind of went to the wayside a little bit. Like, he's always been there, so at least he's always been present. They never, like, didn't put him in, which was great. I will say, tonally in his character, personality-wise, I think they did a good job, because Lupin goes from being kind of this calm. He goes from that in the books to very sad and like almost depressed and almost a little angry, and like he's a very realistic character. And they did that in the scenes that he's been in, but he just didn't have as much to do in the rest of these movies. You know, up until I would say Deathly Hallows Part 1. So he does do a little bit more in this one, but even then, they barely talk about Tonks and Lupin. They never show them actually getting together. They bring it up like for a half a second, and so that was really kind of sad. But the thing with Lupin and, you know, his struggle with being a werewolf, and he doesn't want to put anybody in that position, like being in a relationship or having a son. So I think they could have put a little bit more in, and I was a little disappointed because Lupin is one of my absolute favorite Harry Potter characters. Lupin, Hagrid, and Newt Scamander, if you're talking the Harry Potter universe. Those are like my favorite characters. And so the way that they kind of pushed him to the side a little bit was disappointing. I don't know. I feel like they did my boy dirty a little bit, you know. Now, I've been stalling, but I have to talk about it. There are a lot of deaths in this movie. There are a lot of them. As I was already saying, Mad-Eye Moody, Hedwig, which I think does not get a whole lot of attention. I mean, it does, but I think that because it's so quick, nobody thinks about Hedwig, which is a really honestly sad death. Especially in the movie, because they make her like it's a valiant effort to save Harry, and then she dies. But the only problem is I think Hedwig's death is overshadowed by another one. And you all know who it is. Rufus Scrimgeour. I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm talking about Dobby the House Elf, which I think is one of the saddest deaths I've ever seen. Or just one of the saddest deaths somebody could have come up with. It's one of there's no part of this character that deserves to die. Especially because he's already tried to save Harry once before. And the saddest part is that Harry then said, "Never try to save my life again." Jokingly. Then he tries to, or does save his life again, and pays for it. The only thing is, it does fit with his character because he was willing to do anything for Harry. You know, he's just such a pure good character. And there is a split-second moment in the end where Dobby, which is a great moment, he, drops the chandelier, and his entire, I never meant to kill, just to maim or injure, and then his freaking, his empowering, Dobby has no master, all that's great. But there's this split-second moment where he disapparates after dropping the chandelier, which is awesome, because he, disapparates in midair, and it's just, really cool. But then there's at least 3 or 4 seconds before he apparates back to the stairwell banister with Harry, Hermione, Ron, and Griphook. Apparating's instant. So, I always, I wonder, what was he doing in those couple of seconds? It's a very weird, small detail, but I always wonder that, did he have any second thoughts about going back? Where did he disapparate to? I don't know. I just think about that a lot. It's such a heart-wrenching moment. It's just because he's so tiny, and he's got shoes now. I don't know what it is about his shoes. They're just so cute. It is a very, very hard scene to watch. And, yeah, so they did it very well, though. And obviously the last 3 people I want to talk about are the main 3 people that I need to talk about in this movie is Harry, Ron, and Hermione. This movie is a testament to the progression of the acting of these 3 people who started acting as kids. It's a testament to how far they've come, that they can carry, probably 65% of this movie by themselves and make it so intense and emotional. It was some of the best acting I've seen from all 3 of them. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, especially Daniel Radcliffe, who he really put his all into this one. Compared to what I was talking about in the last movie, Half-Blood Prince. But they really, really brought it for this one. And they did such a good job. I'm not even going to talk about did they have enough to do or whatever, because obviously they did. They really rocked it. You got to spend time with these characters, and you got to spend time with who they are. I'll leave it at that. And it's so weird just to see them so old now. You've grown up with them. Literally, if you were a kid growing up with the series, you literally grew up with the characters and the actors. And seeing them as, these, as one of my friends likes to say when we watch Sorcerer's Stone, they're so tiny. Watching them there and then seeing them grown up here is just so interesting. It was a very cool thing to see, like a big phenomenon. And they're so old and mature, and Harry and Ron have beards now, and they're like men.
My little men.
So yeah, overall, this movie is very intense. It is a little slow. That, I guess, if there is a drawback to it, it is a little slow, and so it can be very long, can be very hard to sit through. And when I think about what do I want to watch in a Harry Potter movie, like when I'm sitting down and be like, which one should I put on? Not the first one I think to put on, because I'm like, well, it's not exactly exciting or happy, but it is still an incredibly well-made movie. It's just, they did a really good job of blending plot, character, emotion, tone, subplots and themes, the historical feel that Deathly Hallows. I don't know if you guys get this, but like there's a very historical feel. Like when I talk about Prisoner of Azkaban, there's that reminiscent feel. And this one, it's more very like you visit historical places like Godric's Hollow, and Harry's parents' graves. And you talk about like even though it's a legend, the tale of the Deathly Hallows. So it's like very, things that happened in the past that are coming back now. So for adaptation of the book, it's pretty flawless. One or two things here. Pettigrew's death is a bigger one. But other than that, I think they did a really, really good job. 3.5 out of 4. Tonally, it's very well done. They have the quietness. They have the... I think they took the quietness to a little bit of an extreme, more so than the book. But I don't think it was unwarranted. And in terms of, like I just said, the historical aspect, the looking into the past, that was all really well done. It does, like I said, feel a little bit slow, but I think overall it was very, very well executed. And I'm going to give that as well a 3.5 out of 4. And then cinematic quality is just... The only thing I would say about it is that the last two movies are very... the thickness is so much, but because it's so dark, unless you're seeing it like in HD or in a dark room, it's kind of hard to see a lot of it. So that is, I think, a little bit of a drawback, just a little bit, only in those scenes that are very dark, which are a fair bit of them. But other than that, the shots, the look of it, the aesthetic, it's just so good. I will give that a 3.5 out of 4, only because of it's hard to see. That works out anyway, because my overall score for this is a 3.5 out of 4. We got one more, guys. I'm not going to do Fantastic Beasts right now because I figured I will actually save that until the next one comes out. So once we do the last one, we'll be done. It's going to be emotional. I'm going to cry a little bit, but we may have a special guest on for the next one. Stay tuned, guys. I'm very excited for it. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and Harry Potter right in the middle.